Tim did a really good job. So,
Sorry, Chair.
I mean, she was the one that ran it. And, I mean,
The meat marshal and stuff like that.
Good evening.
Phenomenal, yeah.
I'd like to bring to order the Village of Ashwaubenon Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Board meeting for Tuesday, March 21, 2023. Roll call, please.
Tracy Buki,
Here.
Mark Gastonia,
Here.
Donovan Miller,
Here.
Aideen Hess,
Here.
Heidi Murphy,
Here.
Debbie Lundberg,
Here.
and Chris Serval's excused.
Pledge allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Action on the agenda. Does anybody have any changes or corrections to the agenda?
I think
Motion
the
to
only,
approve the agenda?
I think the only nitpicky thing I saw was Jessica Brandt was with the Wisconsin DNR. I think it was printed as DNA, Wisconsin DNA. So,
The minutes, or are you talking about the agenda?
on the minutes.
Oh,
Yep. Oh, were we on the agenda?
Yep.
I'm not listening. Save that comment for later. I second that.
okay.
We have a motion then and a second for the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Comments from the public? I see no public here. Or is there any public out there? Hearing none. Any written communications? I have none. I guess not. Okay, action on the consent agenda. This is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
I think I will repeat my comment from earlier, which, but yeah, Jessica Brandt, DNR, was listed as DNA.
On page 3. Packet, page 3.
Anything else?
That's all I saw.
Do we have a motion then?
I'll make the motion to accept with the corrections.
Second.
Okay, motion to accept the minutes from last meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, action item number 8A, action on the 2023 ash tree removal bids. Apparently, we have a number of bids here, and I'm sure that Tim will fill us in on that.
Yep, so I'll let Tim take this one.
Thank you. Since I see a couple new faces since we began this process a few years ago, 3 years ago, we wrote a 5-year ash management plan for the village of Ashwaubenon to cover our parks, green spaces, street trees, included removal of stump grinding, replacement trees, disposal and removal of material, and some incidental costs. So 2023, sorry, is the beginning of the third year of that process. The first 2 years we did essentially the east side of US 41, remove the ash tree stump ground. We still need to get back and do the replacement plantings, but we did do essentially all the ash trees as street trees on the east side of 41. And we did a number of different parks, Argonne, Ashwaubomay, Canterbury, and Fort Howard and Smith Parks. So we knocked off a pretty good chunk of the ash that we needed to remove. We started with, at that point in time, about 1,650 ash trees to remove stump grind and then potentially replace some of those trees. So this year's project in 2023, we're going to focus on the west side of US 41, essentially from Park Place, Lombardi Avenue, Hazelwood, going south across 172 to kind of the Pioneer Park neighborhood, Orchid, Avondale, the streets that are in that area. And the map included in your agenda. I'm sorry, I don't know what page this is. It looks like it's page 8. Kind of gives you a real good representation of what those areas are.
That one didn't turn out very good.
Oh, it did?
No,
Okay,
just FYI.
okay. Are you guys able to see that, or did it not pull through very well?
We got it.
Okay, it did come through.
Yeah.
Okay, Rex's did not.
I pulled it off of
Okay.
the web tonight, so I don't know.
So on that map, you can kind of see, starting in Park Place, going south to cross 172 to that Pioneer Park neighborhood, a little bit up near Cabela's and Argonne Park, some street trees on that side to finish up. So this year's project is split into 3 different sub-projects. And the reason I did that is I wanted to encourage bidders to pick and choose almost a la carte, like the projects that would suit their company, their employees, their equipment, and not necessarily have one contractor to try and do all of this. Because every community in northeastern Wisconsin's in the same situation. So to expect one contractor to handle all of this might not be realistic. Project A, as outlined on your green sheet, is street trees in management areas 6 through 11. That's 375 street trees. So those are the ones that are planted along the streets, roughly 6 feet from the back edge of the curb, and make a lot of our neighborhoods really, really nice in the summertime with that shade. And unfortunately, with the ash borer, we're going to need to remove those. So that's section A, and that will also include the removal in addition to stump grinding. So they'll come back and grind the stumps, backfill it with topsoil seed, make it pretty, and then the replacement plantings will be a completely separate operation that'll follow up behind that. Project B is park tree removals. This year I selected 2 parks to work at, Gillis and Pioneer Parks. They're kind of within the project area already, so it made sense to put those in there also. We're looking at about 50 trees and those 2 park sites, including stump grinding.
At Pioneer, I should mention, for those of you who have daughters who are in Ashwaubenon girls softball, I did talk with Tim about potentially trying to carry on a few of the ash trees that are there, only because in terms of continuing treatment, if they're not too far gone already. I know we were able to do that probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and that's carried some of them through the heavier portion, but a lot of their tournaments have 400, 500, 600 girls at one tournament plus parents, and it gets barren out there with the heat, and there's literally no shade, and everyone's standing underneath the trees. So Tim has done a lot of underplanting there in a lot of different areas, and we'd like to try and continue to try and save a few of the trees there. Same thing's happening over at Clipstein Park. There's a couple of trees that we would just rather not lose. And so, Tim has done some additional EAB treatments there as well, or will be. So just a heads up on that. It's not, but again, it depends. Another year's gone by, and they might be too far gone at this point. But I just want to let you know that we are trying to, pick a very few, and see if we can continue those on until some of those underplantings get a little bit bigger.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And then the third project, Project C, is one that presents a fair amount of challenges just because of the location of these trees. There's a drainage creek conservancy area that runs between Buffalo and Glen from Shady Lane going east to Kimberly. And then it's essentially behind the homes of that area, but the village owns the property, and there was a really nice tree planting of maples and ash throughout that area, and they alternated species, which was a good thing, and emerald ash borer came, so now we need to remove the ash out of that area. And given the limited access from equipment due to fences on the backyards, overhead power lines on both sides, and then just the slope of the area being really tapered down to that creek bottom. That's going to be a challenging project to get those 20 trees out of there. In addition to that, on the west side of Shady, we own a little bit more conservancy land. And on page 12, there's a map outlined in red. And there's 21 trees kind of in a natural area there that we're also going to remove as part of this project. Those trees in the shaded area will not have stumps ground just because they are in a natural area. But some of those trees are close to people's backyards, to their sheds, and there's kids that play down in that area as well, and debris falling into the creek. So we've got a number of reasons to get in there and take care of that. So that was the third project. We sent out bid packets to about over 30 contractors. We did receive 7 bids back that were opened yesterday. And I know for a fact there's 3 other contractors that had prepared bids, but they failed to meet the 10 o'clock deadline. They kind of thought they had all day to get it here, and the deadline is very strict just because of to maintain the integrity of the bidding process. So unfortunately, I had a couple bids that I had to decline because they weren't on time. And does everybody have a copy of the bid summary? Okay, so that gives you a list of the bidders, the prices that they had on each of the projects. Looks like one bidder declined to bid on one of the projects, which is to be expected. And when we look at often we do need to go with the lowest responsible bidder that's qualified to do the job. The 2 low bidders were Foley's Tree Service out of Tomahawk, Wisconsin, and then Trios Tree Service out of Neenah, Menasha. I've worked with both of those contractors on the first phase of this project in 2021, 2022. They are both quality companies that are very responsive to any concerns that we bring to them as the project is moving forward. So my recommendation is to go with low bid on all 3 of those phases. Foley Tree Service for bid A at $145,994.25.
That's the street trees.
For the street trees. And then bid C, which is going to be that Dutchman Creek Conservancy, $25,306.00. And then for bid B, I would recommend going with low bid once again, Trios Tree Service at $16,199.00. The funding for this has been allocated through the bonding process, so it's not directly coming off of the tax rolls. It's not part of our annual budget process. So just like any other big one-time project, our finance director advised that we actually bond for this money. So that's where this money will be coming out of. Any questions, concerns,
Tim,
thoughts, ideas?
Tim, I have a question on your
Sure.
first page. You have for, I think is Triso, for bid B, you have $16,199.
Yes.
And then if you go to page 16, it is, under bid B, you have a total there of $17,192. Is that supposed to be $16,199? Or am I not reading something properly here?
Goalies.
Further back, Dean. 2 more pages back, it'll be trios you're looking at, Foley's, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the bid for Foley's. There's multiple pages, 16 and 17, because they use the same bid forms. So there's a page, Trios Tree Service, page 16, $16,199, yeah. So that adds up.
I'll take your word for it.
Good question.
Looking at the map, Port Orchid Street
Yes.
has all those blue dots. I don't see any yellow dots. Are we gonna help Orchid Street with some trees?
Getting down there.
I'm looking at packet page 9,
Yep,
the whole block right there being blue.
yeah.
Can
So,
we get
yes.
those guys some trees, please?
There is funding included within this project to offer replacement plantings for those.
Okay,
So the way the inventory works is there's 4 different types of sites. There's trees, existing trees that are green. There's planting sites that are out there that are yellow.
so all the yellow dots are under the blue dots, is what you're telling me?
No, under the blue dots, there's actually a green dot. So
Okay.
that, there's trees there. Once the tree is removed,
Okay,
it'll become a stump, which will be red.
yeah.
And then when the stump is gone, we'll change those to
Just-
planting
I just
sites.
want some yellow dots on that street.
There's yellow dots
Just that one block.
scheduled for orchid, yes.
Okay, thank
It's in
you.
a future map.
It's not, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but it's not typically automatic that ones that are cut down are replanted. The residents are sent letters and asked if they would like us to
Okay.
replant the trees at no additional cost. And then if they do, we will go back in there and take care of that for
Okay,
them.
So it has to go from a green dot
right.
to a red dot, and then
Right.
it can become a yellow
Okay, fair
dot.
enough. I just don't see any, that poor block.
Yep.
It's really, makes me,
Yeah,
that one makes
orchid's
me
bad.
sad. I don't get sad about trees a lot, but that one makes me sad.
It's gonna change the look of that.
Orchid and Avondale are gonna look cool.
Yeah,
you're-
Mohican is
yeah.
bad, View Lane, Bruce Lane, Lindale.
Yeah.
Well, I don't care about that side of 172. It's just like, right. It's not my neighborhood, I'm okay.
And then just so you know, the plantings are going to lag, a year or 2 behind the
Right.
removals, just given the scope of the project.
Okay.
What was the removal site dots?
So those are trees that we've removed previously in the past.
Kind of what I thought.
Ground the stump out, and then for whatever reason, we determined that we're not going to do a replacement planting there. So that's just the way to
That works.
to denote that type of site.
Kind of what I thought, just wanted to ask. Thank
Yeah.
you.
An example of that, if we had a spruce tree planted 3 feet from the street, well, we'll remove it, and we're not going to plant another spruce tree in that location, so it would become a removal site. That'd be a good example.
Excellent.
Tim, can I ask about section C? So there's a total then of about 41 trees that would be removed in that section in C.
Yes,
And the 20 of them stumps will be ground, the ones that are in the conservancy area more, and then the ones west of Shady will not be ground out.
correct.
Why is that? 'Cause that's more of a forested area and that you're not going to
It's
worry
a
about?
wooded natural area. There's not turf there. It's not a maintained area. It's
Okay.
more of a woods natural. Yep.
Then the other question I have in regard to tree planting or replanting, what have you found in the other areas you've worked in as far as people wanting trees to go back in? Is there a percentage? Has it been, do you have a feel for that at all? Has most people said, yes, let's do it, or what are you finding?
I haven't offered the plantings yet, just
Even for older areas or for places that you did? like-
correct. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, okay.
it's on my
On your
next, as
to-do
soon as
list?
I get
Okay.
this project up and running, that's probably one of the next ones I'll be
Okay.
working on.
All right.
There's been a lot of positive response, and then there's some people that said they don't want replacement, and that's fine too. So we'll focus on the areas where we want replacement plantings.
Any other comments?
Question, if there were trees that had dots of death on them last year, are those still, those may or may not be in this project, or?
Everything that is out there with a blue dot right now is part of this project.
Okay, what if it's an orange dot?
Those are ones that we do outside of the ash removal
village
projects
does?
with our own village crews.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. There's one in my yard, so I'm just curious when that guy's gonna go away.
What's the address?
Thunderbird and Verkaren,
Okay,
yeah. It doesn't have to go away, I like it there.
okay,
I want a new one.
okay.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
What happens to all the trees that are cut down?
That's a great question. We have a yard waste site that is not the one that everybody general public dumps all their debris at, but out by the airport, that all the grass and leaves that we accumulate throughout the summer and the fall, brush, logs, we've got a site out there that we can store this material. And then last year, the ash removal contractor has a 600 horsepower grinder, and he feeds all the material through that grinder, grinds it up into a mulch, and then he uses it for biofuel. So it's something that he did at no cost to the village. He got rid of a large volume of material for us, and it didn't cost us anything to do that. So kind of the trade-off is, he brings his equipment, his guys, burns his diesel fuel, and then he uses that material that's generated to offset his costs.
My other question is, I noticed that Clipstein Park, there are some tall trees that seem to be dead at the top, but there seems to be green coming out halfway up. Are those ash trees that are coming back, or is that?
No, the ash trees at Clipstein, we removed those out of there probably 5-6 years ago. So those are oak trees that are kind of struggling with the really wet seasonal years that we've had the last couple of years. And if you know anything about ash trees, they don't like wet feet. So they're really struggling because of that.
Unfortunately, we're going to be losing quite a few more trees in Clipstein, which is a shame, because that was like one of our heavier forested parks that people are enjoying, especially with the summer concert series. So we've been trying to do a lot of underplantings. There's a lot of smaller trees that are in there. There will be even more of them planted, but unfortunately, there's going to be that gap in time because of the amount of oak trees that are in there. Water flow patterns have changed there in the last 5 to 10 years due to a couple different reasons, which made the park, it was already a wet park, but it made it even more wet, which is why they're struggling. Not from the water itself, but they're stressed. And when they're stressed, then some different insects can come in and that like stressed oak trees. And that's kind of what is happening right now.
Okay.
They can be green 1 week and literally leafless the next week. It happens really quick. That's one of the reasons we're trying to save a couple of the ash in that park, because of all the other ones that are also having some issues.
So, Tim, the limbs and everything are ground up, chipped up, and the trunks are chipped up?
Yeah.
Could any of those trunks be salvageable for lumber?
Some of them could. The problem we run into is they desire 10'6" clear,
Right.
without a lot of limbs and other stuff on them. So
Right.
we kind of run into an issue of getting enough of it to make it worthwhile. So that's up to the contractor. If they have a way to utilize some of that material and offset their cost for doing the project, I'm fine with that. But every company has a little bit different way of doing things. I think Foley's they have a 24-inch chipper. So their plan is to chip as much as they can on site and then haul it off as chips. Trios has a completely different approach. They haul raw brush to off-site, stack it up as high as they can, and then they grind it with that horizontal grinder at the end of the project. So everybody's got a little bit different way of doing things, but I guess they're all getting to the same point at the end of the day.
Thanks.
You want to explain a little bit about what's going on with that stack of logs in the community center parking lot and moving forward with that?
Yeah, it's completely unrelated to this project. There is a stack of logs that we created last winter that we're going to sell for saw logs. That's work that the village crews have done over the last year. Some of them aren't of the highest quality, but we do get a pretty good, last time I sold it, I think we got a couple $1,000 for the saw logs. We had to deduct the trucking fee off of that. But, so that's a kind of a good little revenue source that we can give back to the village and utilize some of those otherwise would be waste that we're creating.
So to answer, for your initial question, Dean, when the situation is right, we try and do that. We've done that before with some of those nicer logs where we stack them. You need a certain amount for them to be able to truck them away. They don't want to do a small amount, which is the reason why those are kind of languishing in the parking lot right now. We're waiting for the next round of tree removal in Clipstein. And then those coupled with what we have now then can be sold and taken away.
Tim, are those oaks sitting there, or are those ash? All oaks?
That's oak.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's
So-
something that's completely
Yeah.
unrelated to
So when you take the ash tree, just to clarify what Dean had asked about the ash tree, so it's all chipped. Is that the proper way to dispose of it so you don't have the bugs going into other plants, or what do you have to do with it, I guess?
Currently, you don't have to do anything because the quarantine has been lifted in the state of Wisconsin. The right thing to do is to try to keep the firewood or the wood as close to the location that it was cut. So kind of what I tell people that have ash in their yard, keep it in Brown County, because Brown County is generally infested, but if you take it up to, let's say, Bayfield, they might not have emerald ash borer problem up there yet, so we certainly wouldn't want to accelerate that by moving infected firewood up there, I guess infested firewood up there. But yes, chipping it destroys kind of that microenvironment that the beetle larva lives in. So and the rule of thumb is to get it in 2 dimensions less than an inch. So that's kind of the rule of thumb that they've been using over the years. And by doing it with that machine, it certainly does that.
And then that's also been composted for X number of years, so that heat from that helps to kill it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of moisture in that material, so it does heat up pretty quickly. Yeah.
I assume you want a motion to approve these amounts?
Yeah, and then depending on what the motion is, that recommendation will be forwarded to the village board meeting next week for their consideration and approval also.
Would one motion be sufficient, do you think?
So,
Yeah,
motion to approve as recommended, the Foley's on bid A, Trios on bid B, and Foley's again on bid C.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the bids from Foley's and Trails Tree Service as presented in the handout today. Is there any further discussion on this? All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion is carried.
Thanks, Tim.
Item 8B, Ashwaubomay deck rebuild recommendation.
All right, well,
Thank you, Tim.
I was going to have Mel do this one along with the 2022 pool report, community pool report, but spring break beckons for some people. So I will be doing this particular agenda item for the deck rebuild at the lake, and Mel will be in our presence at the April meeting doing the 2022 community pool report. I know we talked about doing that at the March meeting, at our last meeting, but pushed it back another month. So, long story here. Ashwaubomay Lake deck rebuild. This is on the back side of the lake that overlooks the lake. It's the upper deck that is attached to the A-frame that staff use to make announcements, observe the guards, observe things that are happening in the water, so on and so forth. Originally built in 1974. It had a partial failure last summer. We've got it shored up, but it needs to be rebuilt. The shoring up part of it is really only temporary. As such, we worked with Somerville Architects to come up with a redesign plan And essentially, it's the same plan as it was before. It's just going to be all new material, basically. Attached to the building, suspended by larger re-rod hanging from the upper rafters with a support brace underneath that the re-rod attaches to. So we were told, or cost estimates were probably in the $15,000 range, give or take a little bit, which is what we budgeted for this. We contacted a number of contractors, and the bids came back fairly high, anywhere from 26 to, I think we're around $45,000, $50,000, depending upon which one we talked to. Apparently with the, there is a shortage of metalwork for some of the decking area that we have, and there's a long list of projects ahead of ours, this being a fairly small project, which is the reason why the cost was so high. So we recontacted some of those businesses, well, all of them who submitted bids or quotes for us, and a number of them did come down. Only one of them came down underneath the $25,000 threshold, which is the dollar amount which tells whether or not you have to go out to bid for this officially. But we do have one that is under the $25,000 threshold, and that's really all you need. That one under that threshold is RGM Construction at $24,896. And that is our recommendation to go to Village Board for final discussion and action.
Rex, what was the area of the failure for the current deck?
Sure, so there's the re-rod that hangs down, and it's a hollow tube. It's almost like a cradle. There's a hollow tube underneath the deck that the re-rod goes to. And the re-rod goes through that hollow tube, and some large, thick, heavy washers underneath on the re-rod that keeps the re-rod on that tube. And over the years, apparently, there were two different kinds of metals. Apparently, the re-rod was a different type of metal than the tube, and so that didn't react real well. And it allowed water to go into that hollow tube, that cradle that was supporting the deck itself. And so the water was sitting in that hollow tube for years and years and years. And finally, a couple people, one too many people went out on that deck at one time. And the bottom part of that tube that was where the washers are, it let go. And so the deck dropped, and the washers, obviously, it probably dropped about 2 inches all at once. And then the washers caught on the upper part of the tube, which wasn't affected by the water. So it was a little bit of a jolt, but that's what the failure was. And the way this is constructed with the new types of metal or materials, we're being told that won't happen again.
So I looked at it this afternoon, went down to the park. So basically you have 2 posts that are holding up the deck from ground level, correct?
Correct.
And those were 4x4 or 6x6s?
Correct.
Okay, treated wood?
Which we're trying to not have as we continue
Okay,
forward.
but they were treated wood?
To have the ease and ability not to have those as people are running in and out of the main office down below.
So basically what's holding it up is an extension coming off of the original framing of the building. Is that going to be a laminated, waterproof glued wood that's coming out as joists to actually support the original deck, and then with the cabling up above coming off of the ridge board running through the chalet itself?
Can't specifically answer that, Dean. I had Melody do the whole project. Somerville is very well aware. In fact, they might have even been the contractor that originally designed the lake building, the chalet. I'm not even sure. But they were aware of the weather issues and that it's going to be outside. And we are assured by them that the changes in the metal and materials are basically not going to have this happen again. So is it the laminated wood? I can't say for sure off the top of my head. Somerville's a very reputable architect. I'm going to say they, without having the plans right in front of me, I would probably say that I'm comfortable with them. I can get back to you and at least have that information available at the village board and report that next Tuesday.
Okay, I was just wondering, because I tried looking at the blueprint, and the words were all blurry and everything in the reproduction of the blueprint, and I couldn't tell exactly what the verbiage was on it. Yeah, that would be only a question I have, because without having support posts underneath to support it in addition to the cables up from above, then, you got to make sure that the supporting piece underneath, the joists underneath the decking, are substantially anchored to the frame of that chalet.
And with the way it was anchored is not going to be any different. It's going to be the same type of system as what has lasted since 1974.
But I
So
assume that you were eliminating
the
the posts
re-rod is
underneath.
fairly large. There's large metal plates up above that where the bolts go completely through the main rafters or the beams of the A-frame himself
Right.
to support the weight of the decking.
But you also had the posts underneath the joists.
Those posts that are temporary, those were just put in when we took the rebar off.
Okay.
The ones that are going into the sand right now. So what we did is we dug fairly deep holes. We put in large paver blocks that it has a solid surface.
Right.
And then we cut them to size, and that's what is based, and then we attach them to the bottom part of the deck itself. So
Okay, so you purposely did that to compensate for the failure of the decking?
yeah, because
and last year.
there's no rebar there anymore. I mean, we put those posts underneath, and then the rebar was taken off.
Okay. And did they upgrade it, the structure of this, for weight load?
It's going to be the weight load that Melody talked with them about. So again, if the village board approves this information, or Somerville's an architect, it's going to go to our building inspector with all the plans, and our building inspector will make sure that everything is up to par and determined. And probably have a weight load on there. I'm not sure what that weight load is. I mean, we've had a fair amount of staff out there in the past, and I would assume we would want to make it no different than what it has been. Unfortunately, that the water and the rust over the years is what made it fail.
And the entrance to that deck is from the inside, correct?
Yes, correct. From the upper level, which is the staff-only area.
Okay, no entrance to it from the outside?
No.
Okay.
No, this is all up above. It's specifically for the staff, coming off of the staff observation
And that would
break
be,
room and office upstairs.
and that would meet any fire code or anything, not having an outside exit?
No, you don't need it on that, because there's the exit from the staff area on the inside that goes down.
Okay. So you have a bid here of $24,896. It did talk about if there was any additional design for railings and so forth, that'd be an additional $525, correct? Depending upon who came up with the design, whether it was a village or it had to be on the contractor. And is there a building permit fee, or is it not going to be required?
Building permit fees, being a village building, are waived. So we're not going to charge ourselves, in other words, for our own
Okay.
building. But still has to go through the process of being approved.
Right.
But the fees are waived.
So there could be an additional fee of $525?
What page are you on, Dean?
20.
That's just for drawings,
Yeah, for drawings. That was on page,
18 and 20.
18 and 20.
on page 20. At the
So the original proposal, remember how everyone came in above the 25, and then we touched base with all of them and said, can you sharpen your pencil a little bit more? And then, so then the page 20 is the second proposal.
So if you look under notes, number 3, it says if we want an additional drawing, it'll be $525 more.
Well, I would say we don't want it because it put us over the $25,000.
My thoughts exactly, but I think it's being asked.
Yeah, I'm just asking. So then the actual price on this?
I mean, so RJM, from our understanding is what, because we asked them, you know, you're a little bit lower than everybody else, you know, how are you able to do that? They have their own fabrication department that can make these railings on their own versus having to contract out to a subcontractor to make these railings, which is why they're able to get it down to that. So they're making the railings themselves. Do we need a copy of the railing drawing? I don't need a copy of the railing drawing. So, I mean, unless inspection says they want to see it, you know, it kind of goes exactly with what was drawn up by Somerville. So I don't anticipate needing that unless inspection tells us that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the biggest difference for me in the quotes too, was that fabricate, was RJM was fabricating, they're making it on site or in-house and bringing it there, as opposed to install new railing, which means built somewhere else, shipped here.
Right, correct.
Which will also likely speed up the timeline because RJM is going to do the deck and then the railing, or make the railing while they're.
Correct. Everything's done in-house
Rather than waiting
versus
on.
having to get a subcontractor to make it. Yep, and ship it to them.
So if all these bids are budgeted for more than we have allotted, how are we going to make up the difference?
So the bids, where this money is coming from is called the Building Maintenance Fund, which is
Okay.
for any village facility building, per se. Village Hall, the garage out back, the Lake Chalet building. I mean, some of the buildings, obviously, we repair ourselves out of our own park and rec budget, but larger, bigger repairs such as this comes out of the overall village building maintenance fund, and that's how this is going to be paid for. Talking with Greg, our finance director, he's said that there's money available, and he'll let the village board know that next Tuesday, that extra $10,000 is there. I mean, it's a pot of money that's there for any emergencies that would happen at any village facility. So there was 15,500 budgeted initially, so we'd probably, well, we would need about another 10, just less than 10 to make up for that.
I think looking at the picture of that building and that deck, it's a very unique project. And I think this is, having just put a deck on my house, I think that's a very fair bid with Trex decking, because that stuff is not cheap. And anything hanging from the ceiling is pretty important to be done right.
And
Hanging from the
quite honestly, I mean, what we have right now supporting it will work. I mean, it's temporary, but it's solid, it's not going anywhere. If for some reason inspection comes back and says they need anything more, you know, then we'll rebid it out, we'll do it the right way. You know, not that this isn't the right way, but we'll go through the full process, and it'll have to be a post-summer project then versus this project, which could be done before the lake opens. So.
Rex, are you familiar with RJM Construction, or have the building inspectors familiar with them?
They are. There's no issue with RGM. They've actually, they submitted a bid for the park maintenance building. They were the number 2 bidder, I think, for the park maintenance building. So it sounds like they want to get their foot in the door with the village for potential future projects, and kind of show us what they can do, which is one of the things that Mel talked with them about, and that was their response to her in terms of the pricing.
And the decking will be the composite, and then the galvanized railing will be what the railing will be, correct, with their bid?
If that's what Somerville has in the specs, and that's what they said they were able to do.
So do you know if Somerville checked the upper part where it'll all connect to make sure, and I would assume that the building inspectors will maybe double check, like Dean's comments. I mean, if it failed down low, and it's totally different, I know, up high, but I would assume someone will double check that, and make sure that it's going to be safe.
They're going to have to
Tapping into
replace
that.
the rebar itself, so they'll be going all the way up to the top to remove everything, putting new stuff up there.
Okay.
So, and you got to remember too, that the stuff up above, basically, it's the rebar going up with the post going through with the metal plating attached to the beams. That's not holding or catching any water up there, whereas what failed down below was the interior of the hollow tube that was supporting the deck, and that was holding the water in, unbeknownst to anyone, that's what was holding the water inside of that tube and rusting away from the inside.
Yeah, well, and I get that, but I was just thinking if it was built in 74, I'm sure they're going to double check up there just to make sure, because that's holding all that weight for that deck. I would assume so.
I'll make a motion to approve the bid at 24,896 for RJM Construction.
I second it.
Been motion, second to approve the construction. Are there any further comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Moving along, item 8C, Park and Recreation individual reports for March 2023.
Okay, by this time, I think everyone should have received their Park and Recreation brochure in the mail. I know I got mine I think on Saturday. So we are in the process of finishing up entering all of the classes and creating class numbers for everything in the brochure. And we will soon be taking registration for the spring and summer programming. David did a nice job on the brochure. David probably, well, he does everything. I mean, obviously we all submit things to David, but David works with the printing company to take care of, going back and forth and making corrections and moving things around, so on and so forth. So he didn't, as he always did a great job on it again this year. Dance recital was held at the Ashwaubenon Performing Arts Center on March 3rd for our dance classes. That was a success. Taking registration, a lot of senior programming. Park projects. We did have a construction meeting on the Ashwaubomay River Trail Bridge this morning. Happy to announce that all of the pilings were driven, that needed to be driven into the water by March 15th. So I mean, literally, they were still driving them on that day. But we got all the in-water stuff driven, and the land stuff was driven late last week, which we didn't need to worry about the March 15th date on that one. But all the pilings are driven. So right now, they are receiving the forms for the landings on either side and for the bridge itself. I believe the girders are supposed to be coming in next week, so they should be pouring concrete for the landings. They're hoping in about 2 weeks. So they're continuing to move on with that. They still have the crane on the south side, which will be needed to place the girders and so
The
on.
landings are concrete?
What's that?
The landings are concrete? You said pouring.
The frame.
So they are not impacted by frost? Or no?
They'll need to do like a frost, if I haven't seen the plans for that.
No, okay.
But I would assume, because there needs to be some concrete involved just for space reasons, especially on the north side. So any concrete that's formed, they would be digging and doing forms for it and doing a frost wall and whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was out there today, they were forming it up on the north side.
North side.
Yeah, because they'll have to have forms built for the footings
Yep.
that the steel beams will be inserted in.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
And like I said, the girders, I believe the steel deliveries are supposed to come next week. So,
It's been great to see all the pictures on Facebook of as it's moving along. So Haley, keep doing that there. That's nice to see that and see how this is a huge project, you know, and have people to see how it's moving along is great.
yeah, it's nice to see some of the fun pictures. And let's see here. Park maintenance building still on schedule to start in April. I know I got a couple calls from WPS regarding length of run for the electricity and stuff like that, so they're asking. IEI is our contractor on that, so they're just asking different questions, and so everything's coming together real quick, but that should be starting, I'm guessing, within about 2 or 3 weeks, where they actually start to break ground for that. Happy to see that. That'll make a lot of people, our park maintenance crew, real happy once that's done. Happy to report regarding staffing. We're doing better this year than last year, and at this stage in the game, a lot of our positions are filled. Day camp is filled. We've got our park maintenance position. Summer kids are filled. We've got a third gang mower operator, which we were short one last summer, which the other two are going to be extremely happy that we've got a third one this year, because everyone likes their free time. But positions are filling up fast. Melody is also very comfortable with where she's at, swim instructor, lifeguards for the lake and the pool. Quite honestly, we're already set. So we've had a few people come back. And we had a lot of people returning. They were those wage increases to make our rate of pay commensurable with other businesses in Brown County and like communities has certainly helped. And it shows with the applicants that we've got right now. So happy with that. Aquatics talked a little bit about the pool report will be given next week. Mel's continually doing training, and we'll be hosting another lifeguard training class coming up in April. But I did mention, I think at the February park board meeting, that we were hosting a fairly large swim meet, the 10U swim meet. That was probably our biggest meet that we've hosted since the pool was built. Heidi was telling me today that she worked the meet. If I don't want to put you on the spot, but maybe if you could share just a little bit about how
I volunteered for a little bit on Sunday morning of the meet. That was the first 10U meet in the state. It's also the first meet that took place outside of Milwaukee or Madison for as long as I think anybody can remember. The people from Mequon did not love driving to Green Bay, but who does love driving and staying in a hotel?
Who says we like driving to Mequon?
Exactly, that's the point, exactly. So while I was volunteering, we received several compliments about how the meet was run, how everything was going, the facilities, et cetera. So the fact that pool was put in for that reason, and it puts us kind of on the map for our aquatics program is huge. So the swim team, Ashwaubenon Swim Club, did a phenomenal job. They had an air mattress in the field house for camping out. So they used the field house tournament, like the WIA tournament stuff worked out that they could do staging in the field house. A lot of other facilities do not have that option. I think it's Walter Schrader down in Mequon, the Walter Schrader Aquatic Center, that it's all just bleachers all around the pool. You don't have a separate space.
Wauwatosa?
Is that one Tosa?
Might be Waukesha.
I don't know. I have a good friend who's on the Ashwaubenon Swim Club board. That's how I ended up volunteering.
Yeah, they have massive bleachers.
Exactly, but that's all they have. They don't have another space. So concessions were set up in the cafeteria area of the high school, which worked out really well because I was trying to picture how that was going to go too. So
the meet was so big that they had to literally use the whole southern portion of the school. So both gymnasiums, the cafeteria, the hallways in between. There were almost 1,500?
They ended up
Swimmer?
adding teams, so it ended up being extended by 2 hours. The meet ended up getting extended by 2 hours
Yeah.
on Sunday afternoon as well. So, like I said, it was an amazing thing for Ashwaubenon, for our swim club, for a lot of things. It made our community look really great, so,
Put a lot of heads in beds,
yes.
which is,
Well, and that's part of it too, is like, it brought a lot of recreation and, guests to Ashwaubenon that we wouldn't normally have had. So I think people were pleasantly surprised by the facilities as well. So, yay, sports.
thank you for the report. Does anyone have any questions about anything that is either on the report or even what's not on the report or what's happening in the department? So,
I had wrote one thing down about the bridge, and it was just something that dawned on me, that when they had to bring or the barge couldn't get in, when they had to dam it off, and that's like act of God or type status. They don't charge us extra for that, do they?
they might be.
Okay, I was just wondering.
There's always a certain amount of money in the project that's used for overages, for things like that happen. So the question is whether or not that will cover that.
No, okay. That's a net
That hasn't,
10%.
we're not at that point in discussion.
Okay. Yeah, it just dawned on me the other day as I was driving over 172. I'm like, I wonder if we're getting charged for it.
Well, yeah, so they had to bring in that extra crane.
Yeah, and it put them back a couple days probably, and
It put us back for at least a week.
yeah.
The
So
water was so low that, especially in the shallower parts of that river, that probably for a good 20 to 30 feet out from, or even more than that, maybe even 40 or 50 feet out from the south shore, it was literally, I saw pictures of it today, because, everyone was taking pictures. It's like a mud flat.
yeah,
So there wasn't even any way to,
it's really low right
that's
now.
why they needed a special crane to put in Ashwaubomay, because then they could just swing that whole boom down and pound the girders from the shoreline,
Sure. Okay.
versus a barge wouldn't have even been able to do that.
The easy
southern set of girders.
instead of doing it the easy way.
So, yeah,
Okay.
the water's low there, and there's not a lot of, the water's lower right now than what it was 3-4 years ago. So that
Yeah.
really is showing.
It's very low. Okay, I wrote it down, and yeah.
Anybody else have any comments or questions, or? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn, or no, let's do the, anything for the next agenda for next meeting.
So we do have the 22 community pool report. I don't know if that will be a standalone agenda item, or if that's the only item. Do we have an April meeting? I'm not, haven't decided that yet. But we do have that coming up. Mel has been working on that report for us. And that talks about swim lessons and permits and adult, lap swim and numbers and so on and so forth. So that's what that report will cover.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks,
I guess we
everyone.
carried. We're done.
This conference is no longer